Battle brewing about the Benghazi report. Republicans leading the Select Benghazi Committee say the White House will not turn over to the committee what it needs. And the GOP members in the White House deadlocked over whether President Obama should answer questions about the deadly 2012 attack. And today, the committee's Democrats were releasing their Benghazi report. Fox News Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Harrods is here. Catherine, obviously the Democrats is preemptive, but let me turn to the dispute that the committee, Gowdy, is having with the White House. What is it about?
Well, the committee chairman first contacted the White House in 2014 and said we want to have a series of questions put to the president about what he was doing that night, also when he first learned who the terrorists were who were behind the attack, and whether he had ever signed off on a covert weapons operation to arm the Libyan opposition.
Which, of course, was your story a couple years ago.
Over a year ago. And this was not a conspiracy story. After we did our reporting, there were significant documents from the Defense Intelligence Agency showing that the U.S. intelligence community was tracking the movement of weapons from Libya to Syria. And also immediately after the attack, there was really conflicting testimony from the Deputy Director of the CIA and the Director of National Intelligence about weapons moving from Libya into Syria.
So we never get to the bottom. I mean, if the White House won't answer questions, and maybe they don't have to because separation of powers or executive privilege, but we never, I mean, it's like, wouldn't you think that just on that whole transparency thing that the president ran on 2008, why don't you just answer the questions?
Well, I can't speak for the president, but one of the issues that still remains unresolved is why the U.S. was in Benghazi with such a large presence. What many people forget is that it was more than 24 people who were operating out of that CIA annex in Benghazi, and this was a facility that was so secret. Even on the night of the attack, senior members of the administration did not know about its existence.
Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
And host of The Five, Kimberly Guilfoyle, goes on the record. Kimberly, your thought about the Benghazi report of the White House not cooperating, not answering those questions, and the Democrats doing their preemptive report tonight?
Well, it's once again, you know, an overuse of the executive privilege by the president and asserted by his attorney advising to not answer any of these questions. And I couldn't agree with you more. What about the transparency that has long been promised and long denied by this administration in terms of putting forward the answers, the information about what happened on the night of the terrible Benghazi attacks? Where was the president? And this isn't the first time we've seen this happen. As you recall, the president also refused to answer any proffered questions with respect to the Fast and Furious investigation and the gun walking as well, where we lost one of our Border Patrol agents. So this was no surprise that it happens like this, but it's shameful nonetheless. And I don't think this violates a separation of powers and making it that the legislature could ask the president questions, you know, unilaterally at its own discretion. He should answer, and he should also answer the American people.
I'll tell you the thing that really sticks with me. I mean, I can understand the confusion, the fog of war that night, but here's what I don't get. I didn't get Susan Rice with that silly, ridiculous video thing, which is about 3 days later. But even more than that, is 9 days later on September 20th, the president is talking to Univision, and he talks about the offensive video cartoon. He uses it. He says it's the video. But that's not all. On the 25th of September, that's 2 weeks later, he's talking again. This time he's on The View. And on The View, the television show ABC, he's still using the video. Is he that uninformed that he's still talking about the video 2 weeks later? That's completely bizarre. Is he that uninformed, or is he just refusing to tell us the truth? Because nobody thought it was the video after about 3 or 4 days. Nobody even thought it was 24 hours later. Most people didn't think that night. But why was he still doing that? And that's what I want to know. What's he?
Well, it's terrible because who was pushing that video? Yeah, they marched out Susan Rice and paraded her on the Sunday talk shows to perpetuate this false narrative to the American people, when our very own Secretary of State knew that evening that that was a lie. She, in fact, told her daughter in an email, Chelsea Clinton, the truth. So why is the president doing it 2 weeks later? And he can go on The View and tell these other people that, but he won't answer the questions of, you know, the lawmakers, the legislators that are paid for by the American people, by you and I, to find out what happened and why are there 4 dead Americans that could have been saved. It's really shameful.
I think that's just terrible, and I know that some people think it's because he was trying to pretend that it wasn't Al-Qaeda and it was because he's facing the November election to be for president, his re-election. But to think, I mean, like, I just don't get it. That's the question I want to know. Is, Mr. President, why 10 days later and why 2 weeks later were you still trying to sell that stupid idea of the video to the American people? Did you not know? Were you the only one in the country who didn't know, or were you trying to bamboozle us? But I don't, you know, I just don't get that one. And that's what I wish he would answer. But anyway, I'm taking the last word on that. Kimberly, thank you. I always watch the 5.
All the best.